Donald Trump took it upon himself to share with the world that he believes that he can pardon himself, but that he wouldn't need to pardon himself because he hasn't done anything wrong. In the tweet, he said, as has been stated by numerous legal scholars, which it hasn't, I have the absolute right to pardon myself, but why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong? I don't know, Trump, why would you do that if you haven't done anything wrong? Why would that thought even cross your mind if you haven't done anything wrong? All right, the president's legal team argued in a confidential January memo to Mueller that Trump could not have obstructed an FBI probe into Russian interference in the 2016 election because as president, he has total control over all federal investigations. That was a story that was reported by the New York Times. And so all this stuff is coming together and all these concerns are now coming up in regard to Trump pardoning himself if Mueller finds any damning evidence in regard to Trump and Russian meddling and obstruction of justice.
So let me get in on that letter. So the Trump's legal team sends this letter back in January. New York Times finds out about it and prints an article about it this weekend on Saturday. So in the letter, they say what Anna just read to you, which means basically, if the president does it, it must be legal, which is the exact argument that Nixon used. They're like, look, the president is the chief law enforcement officer, I guess in a sense, so he could fire anyone he likes and he could stop any investigation he likes. And so if he stops an investigation, it must by definition be legal because he's the chief law enforcement officer.
So I have a snippet from the letter itself,
okay.
And this is the most relevant part. It said, it remains our position that the president's actions here, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction because that would amount to him obstructing himself, and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise his power to pardon if he so desired.
So that's an insane legal theory. That basically says the president is above the law.
Right.
He can do anything he likes and then pardon himself. He could punch you in the face and then pardon himself. He could shoot someone in the face and then pardon himself, which by the way, Giuliani later made that claim on TV. So he said, he could just murder James Comey and pardon himself. Why would you say that? Don't say things like that, right? So it's also not true. In our system of government, the president is not above the law. No person is above the law, including the president who's supposed to represent us. He's not supposed to be a dictator that we bow down to. He's supposed to be our representative. Our representative doesn't get to break the laws any way that he likes. That's not our system of government.
So the argument that Giuliani specifically makes is that, no, he can't, he's the president. He can't get indicted. Even if he shoots Comey, he can't get indicted. He can get impeached and then he could get prosecuted. But as president, he can't get indicted. And I think it's interesting that he makes that distinction because to me, and by the way, this is my read of it, this is my speculation, I guess, it kind of signals that Republicans aren't gonna impeach him, so good luck, So we can do anything we like. Right.
Or it could signal, and I can't tell with Giuliani, he is so bad at his job, I sometimes wonder if he's actually trying to throw Trump under a bus, right? Because he's like, well, you could impeach him if he pardoned himself, and you should, right? Oh, okay. I'm guarantee you that Trump was not happy about that talk because Trump knows what they all don't know, which is he did it. So that's why he brings up a pardon out of nowhere. And by the way, he tweeted about that after Giuliani said those things on TV. And he goes and then panic tweets, well, I don't have to, but I could give myself an absolute pardon, okay? So in other words, Giuliani, cool it with that talk about being impeached because I could do it. And look, guys, one more thing about that before we move on to the Republican reaction. Think about it if it was you. So let's say you're the president and someone makes an insane accusation against you, totally not true, and you know it because you know you didn't do it, right? Let's make it extreme. They say, oh, you bestiality. You're like, that's preposterous, you know you didn't do it, right? Would you jump up all of a sudden and be like, now I could pardon myself for having sex with a donkey. I mean, I didn't do it, but I could pardon myself. You would never say that, right? Because you didn't do it. Why would you even consider pardoning yourself for something so preposterous that you clearly did not do? You would only say, I could pardon myself, I really could do it, if you think maybe you did it.
And then there's also this very clear strategy of like defaming anyone who's involved in the investigation or characterizing them as political opponents when in reality, Rod Rosenstein and Robert Mueller have been lifelong Republicans. He keeps describing them as Democrats on a witch hunt. No, they're Republicans. And you chose Rod Rosenstein. I mean, whatever. You get what I mean. Like, it's the most absurd thing. If you are innocent, why are you going out of your way to make it seem as though these people who are Republicans are actually Democrats on a witch hunt? And you can't stop yourself from tweeting all sorts of nonsense that makes you look pretty damn guilty.
So now the question is, are they going to do anything about it? Because they're right, it could lead to impeachment if he were to pardon himself, which is preposterous. But would it? Now, a bunch of Republicans, as Anna is going to tell you, say that it would. Or, hey, they would be deeply concerned.
They're not going to do anything.
No. All right, well, but it depends. I'll tell you what it depends on, but first let's give you their quotes.
All right, let's hear from Representative Will Hurd. He says, I think that it would be a terrible move, meaning if Trump pardoned himself. I think people would erupt. I think even thinking about trying to fire Mueller is a bad move politically.
So he's a deep right-winger in Texas. He's a Republican through and through, saying don't do it.
Witch hunt, Democratic witch hunt. Okay. He also continued to say that would create outrage on both sides of the political aisle.
No, it wouldn't, but that's okay. That's okay. I like that he's saying it. He's wrong, but that's okay.
House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy says the president is not saying he is going to pardon himself, so he's kind of in denial about it.
Yeah, of course, because if he says, yeah, I think the president can pardon himself, then the Democratic president can come in, do anything they want, and just pardon themselves. So it's just counter to our democracy. So they can't sanction it. On the other hand, they don't want to criticize Trump because Kevin McCarthy wants to be the next Speaker of the House. That would kill his chances if he ever criticized Trump. So he's like, no, it's okay, I don't have to answer that because he's not going to pardon himself. Then why did he just tweet like a maniac this morning saying, I could pardon myself? In other words, he's definitely thinking about it.
And the rest of his quote was, but I don't think the president should pardon himself.
Yeah, so look, and then Steve Schmidt went off on him. He's a GOP strategist, but that's not that surprising. He's a guy who never liked Trump in the first place and has attacked him many times before. Schmidt was a huge part of John McCain's campaign. So there are plenty of Republicans opposed to Donald Trump, plenty of Republicans who agree with Donald Trump on their policies, but go, no, this is a bridge too far. We basically, burn the democracy down if we let the president just break any law he likes. Having said that, if he were to fire Mueller now, pardon all of his cronies, including himself, I would be shocked if the Republicans impeached him.
Right.
Shocked.
I totally agree. His poll numbers have been improving.
Yes.
They have been improving, and it could be a risky move, politically speaking, to attempt to impeach Trump when he's doing slightly better in the polls. And I say slightly better because if you look at the grand scheme of things and if you look at the context, his poll numbers still aren't great compared to other presidents. But they're improving, meaning that it would be politically risky for the GOP to speak out against him too aggressively or to attempt to impeach him.
All right, so a couple more things about that. One, he's in the low to mid 40s now, which is terrible for any other president. If you're under 50%, you're in trouble. But for him, it's a vast improvement. He's like, well, I've never seen 42% before. I'm so psyched. So the other Republicans are like, yes, oh, thank God, he finally got into the 40s. Okay, so that's the context. But he is, in that sense, surging. Why, by the way, he takes credit for the economy, the low unemployment, et cetera. You see the charts, the unemployment is going straight down under Obama. It continues under Trump, and he's like, see, it was me. It's preposterous, totally preposterous. But the MAGA guys, they only need this much evidence. They're good enough, right? Anyway, it's okay, it's okay. So the important part is the political context here. If Trump blows up the markets, which he probably will, and the economy, which he probably will, because he's too incompetent, and it's closer to the midterm elections and the Republicans are not polling well, then they might impeach. But today, with his poll numbers stabilizing, and the Republicans still in the middle of primaries. Look, I'm glad he's not doing it, but this is the time where he would get away with it. And you think the Democrats could effectively take him down?
No.
No matter what he did?
Come on.
These Democrats, inconceivable. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.